So here's my take on the Caitlin Clark all-time leading scorer thing. I think it's all about the wording and how you use that wording to represent what Caitlin did versus what Pete did versus what Pearl Moore did. So it all comes down to the wording and what you actually believe. This is one of those scenarios where in sports, you really can't compare the three to one another, except for the fact that they all played basketball. They were all great basketball players in their respective eras and the style of game that they played in. Now, Caitlin Clark is the all-time NCAA Division I leading scorer. There's no doubt about it. You can't question it. She's the all-time leading scorer in NCAA history. Pete is the all-time men's leading scorer in NCAA Division I history. Pearl Moore is the all-time leading college basketball leading scorer. Now, I see what I did there is you have to separate the two. There's the NCAA Division I leading scorer, and then there's the all-time college leading scorer. The reason why I say that is because they're two different things. Pearl played with a heavier ball, no three-point line, and the knock, I guess what people say against her is playing in a smaller college with lesser competition. Okay, so be it if that's the actual case. And I don't want to take nothing away from her accomplishments, or the people that she played against. Because obviously I'm not skilled at basketball, and if they're playing in college, they're way better than me, so I don't want to take anything away from their accomplishments. But there is a separation there from the NCAA and then the overall college record. Now, with Pearl not playing with a heavier ball, no three-point line, in a different era, it's kind of hard to compare what she would have been able to do in this game, in this day and age. For instance, with that lighter ball, the three-point line, her skill set, would she have shot more? Would she have shot less? Would they have defended her differently with the three-point line? Would have been a different style game. The three-point line, when you play with it or without it, it's a completely different style of game, and people are going to attack and defend each other and scheme for those scenarios. So that's what I said. It's so hard to compare the two because you really can't, because of the rules and the circumstances of the two different eras are different. Now, to me, I look at Pearl and I say she's the all-time leading college scorer for basketball. I say Pete is the all-time men's leading scorer for NCAA. And I say Caitlin is the all-time leading scorer, not only women's, but NCAA college basketball leading scorer. Now, with Pete, he didn't have a three-point line. Okay, I understand that. Now, if he had a three-point line, would he have taken a lot more shots at the three-point line? Would he have scored more? Would he have taken less shots? Would they have defended him differently? Would he have had more opportunities or less opportunities to shoot the ball if there was a three-point line? Would they have defended him differently? Now, they also say that he took more shots but he also had less games to achieve his goal. Well, again, it's so hard to compare with that three-point line and then the different era, because if he's shooting if he's shooting double the shots that Caitlin is he really a better shooter, or is he gonna, in this era, is he really gonna have more shots because they're gonna know him and they're not gonna allow him to shoot as many shots and score as many points during a game, because the way statistics and analytics are set up nowadays, are they really going to allow that? And the competition, athletes are bigger, stronger, than they were back in the day as well. So is that going to hurt him? Is it going to help him? Because he's also going to have those advantages as well. You don't know. Whereas Caitlin, we can honestly say now, okay, 3-point line may have benefited her compared to like shooting with a heavier ball and no 3-point line. But maybe if she played back then, she would have shot more easier inside shots where the percentages of making them are a little bit higher. So you have to think about that as well. And people don't really realize that. So if you take the 3-point line out, is she going to try to shoot that far back without a 3-point line? Probably not, because it's not worth as many points. So she's going to be playing more small ball, and she's going to be inside more, theoretically, shooting closer shots and higher percentage shots. And that's the same thing with Pearl and Pete. With that 3-point line, it spreads the floor out a little bit more. So are they going to take the 3-point shots? They're going to be a lower percentage shot and maybe not make as many as they would as if they moved in a little bit and took those higher percentage shots. But to me, it all comes down to the wording. I don't want to take away anything from the three athletes, because on their worst day, they would just like decimate me. So their accomplishments are second to none to me in history. Like, they are the leading pack, the 3-pack in college basketball, whether it just be the overall college score, the NCAA men's overall, or the leading scorer in college and women's in NCAA history. It all comes down to the wording, because you don't want to say Pete is the all-time scorer, because now he's not really. Even though he might not have played in as many games or had the 3-point line, he technically did not score as many as Caitlin did. Did Caitlin score as many as Pearl did? No. So she's not the all-time college leading scorer. And again, then did Pearl play against the best competition? Not necessarily, but she also had other factors going against her, whereas if she had a lighter ball or that 3-point line, she may have actually scored more. So it's kind of hard to actually compare, and that's why I said it's one of those rare, very rare times in sports history where you cannot compare the three different athletes to one another, because it was 3 different eras and 3 different types of basketball being played. If they all played under the same rules in the same era, who knows what would have happened. I was trying to think of the analogy I used yesterday. All right, we'll say, like, since I'm a runner, we'll just say, who would have been better, Kipchoge or Prefontaine, in their errors? Okay, so if you switched errors, would Prefontaine do as well as Kipchoge now? Or would Kipchoge do as good as Prefontaine did back in the day? You have so many different changes, like even in the running world, with like the shoes, the analytics, the health benefits. So to me, it's a good analogy to put those two together when comparing to basketball, because if you switch them, who's to say one's going to do better in that era compared to the other one in the other area? And that's what I'm saying about Caitlin, Pearl, and Pete. It's so hard to compare the three, because there is no realistic way to compare the three. Now, if Pete maybe played 4 full years in college basketball and had his freshman year count, he would have had those like extra 700 points. Maybe. Would he have started on his varsity team? Would he have gotten into the game his freshman year if they allowed it back then? We don't know. Nobody's actually said that, if he was actually going to be a starter on that team or been able to get in the game or actually score any points. So the argument with him having scored 700 points as a freshman is really invalid, because you don't know if he was actually going to be able to be on the court his freshman year. I would say he probably would have been. But how many points would he have actually scored his freshman year in college compared to him going up against those sophomores, juniors, and seniors. People were trying to throw that 700 in, but he might have only had 200 points or another 100 points added on to his total, which, I mean, then that would have put him over at Caitlin, but you don't know because they're different eras. He wasn't able to play his freshman year, if that makes sense. It's just weird to compare the two, and what it comes down to is, why do we have to try to take away something from Caitlin when it's a great accomplishment and it's something that obviously no other individual on the earth has been able to do? Whether you agree that she's the best, or if Pete's the best, or if Pearl's the best, why are we trying to take away from these three amazing athletes' accomplishments and not just enjoy and respect what they were able to do for their sports? Let's be honest, what Caitlin and Angel and some of these other great females have done this year for women's college basketball is completely amazing. I would actually go as far as to say that women's college basketball this year was more exciting and a better product than the men's side. And I think that's what the argument really stems towards as well, because people are just angry that women's college basketball is getting so much spotlight this year. But it's well deserved. Look what these amazing women have done in college basketball this year, and people are trying to take away from it, which they shouldn't be. And just trying to take away from Pete, Caitlin, and Pearl is just ridiculous. You can't compare the three. We shouldn't be trying to compare the three. We should just be amazed in their accomplishments, what they've been able to do, and just respect them for being such top-tier athletes and top-tier representatives for the sports that they, well, for the sport of basketball that they represent, and just sports athletes in general, how they represented themselves and what they brought to the table and what they've done for athletics and inspired people throughout the years. So we should just respect that and just look forward to what Caitlin's going to do on her next step, because now with all like social media and TV and stuff, if Pete and Pearl were able to play in this era, we would be drooling over their accomplishments and watching them play. So I guess in closing is, could we just please respect the three athletes and give them their due honor? And again, trying to quit comparing the three, because you really can't. I know in sports we always try to do that, but we really can't in this case. And please use the wording properly. I know ESPN and some of the other news and social media sites have been mixing up the words, and I think that's wrong because it does take away from Pearl and not giving her credit for being the all-time leading college basketball point scorer. Again, Caitlin's the NCAA overall leading scorer as well as leading women's scorer. Pete is the all-time leading men's scorer, and Pearl is the all-time leading college scorer. You have to separate the wording into three different categories in this case, and you shouldn't cross over and say Caitlin's the all-time leading scorer because she's not. Pearl was, and you can't say Pearl was the NCAA's leading scorer because she wasn't. And you can't say that Pete is now or is the leading scorer because he got knocked off, whether he played less games or had circumstances going against him. I'm sorry, he didn't do it. So I guess that's my little hot take. I know people are going to backlash or criticize me, but there's so many different things, like Pete shooting more, whereas Caitlin has a three-point line, whereas Pearl had the heavier ball and no three-point line. Like, you just can't compare the three. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And let's just enjoy their greatness and respect them and honor them for what they have done.